All right, friends, welcome to History with Tim. I'm doing something a little different today. I think it's actually kind of cool. I wish I kind of done this with other videos, but I decided not to. But I thought, I'm doing this Gettysburg series, and this is a subject I really like. It's a subject I care a lot about. I'm wearing my kepi from when I used to be a reenactor. The years have been kinder to this kepi, but we talk about the battle. We talk about everything that happened, but we don't actually read. Like, we'll quote some of the officers, we'll quote some of the generals, but we never actually get the full report. So what I've decided to is today I'm actually going to read George Gordon Meade's full report from the Battle of Gettysburg. So this is written actually a few months after. This will be written in October, following because what happened was a lot of these guys were wounded. So think about the corps commanders that were wounded or killed. John Reynolds is killed on the first day. Winfield Scott Hancock is wounded. Gouverneur Warren, he's wounded, but he also becomes a corps commander in the army. Humphreys, Sickles, Dan Butterfield, the chief of staff of George Meade at the Battle of Gettysburg, is wounded at the Battle of Gettysburg. So it took Meade some time to gather all this information and be able to write it all down and send it to Washington, because a lot of people don't realize this, especially in the military. You have to give a report on what happened. It's something that I think a lot of people don't realize about war, and that's how it is, because that's how you actually get your statistics and stuff originally. Like the papers, if you ever see the movie Gangs of New York, which takes place during the New York City draft riots, the casualty numbers they're actually looking at in that movie aren't actually from Gettysburg or Chancellorsville. They're from Shiloh. So that's what's interesting, because it takes time to get these numbers out, because the Battle of Gettysburg happened July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1863. The New York City draft riots, I believe, begin July 12th. No one knew the actual casualty rate until October. So it's a cool little way to discuss like how everything worked. I'm just gonna take it off. But I hope you enjoy it, and let's get into it. Headquarters, Army of the Potomac, October 1st, 1863. General, I have the honor to submit herewith a report of the operations of this army during the month of July last, including the details of the Battle of Gettysburg, delayed by the failure to receive until now the reports of several corps and division commanders who were severely wounded in battle. On June 28th, I received the orders of the President of the United States placing me in command of the Army of the Potomac. The situation of affairs at that time was briefly as follows. The Confederate Army, commanded by Robert E. Lee, estimated at over 100,000 strong of all arms, had crossed the Potomac River and advanced up the Cumberland Valley. Reliable intelligence placed his advance on the Susquehanna, at Harrisburg and Columbia. My own army, of which the most recent return showed an aggregate of a little over 100,000, was situated in and around Frederick, Maryland, extended from Harper's Ferry to the mouth of Monocacy, and from Middletown to Frederick. June 28 was spent in ascertaining the position and strength of different corps of the army, but principally in bringing up cavalry, which had been covering the rear of the army in its passage over the Potomac. On the 30th, General Buford, having reported from Gettysburg the appearance of the enemy on the Cashtown Road in some force, General Reynolds was directed to occupy Gettysburg. On reaching that place on July 1st, General Reynolds found Buford's cavalry warmly engaged with the enemy. Major General Reynolds immediately moved around the town of Gettysburg and advanced up the Cashtown Road, and without a moment's hesitation, deployed his advanced division and attacked his enemy. Up to this time, the battle had been with the forces of the enemy, debouching from the mountains on the Cashtown Road, known to be Hill's Corps. In the early part of the action, success was on our side. Wadsworth's division of the 1st Corps, having driven the enemy back some distance, capturing numerous prisoners, among them General Archer of the Confederate Army. The arrival of reinforcements for the enemy on the Cashtown Road and the junction of Ewell's Corps, coming on the York and Harrisburg roads, which occurred around 1 and 2 p.m., enabled the enemy to bring vastly superior forces against both the 1st and 11th Corps, outflanking our line of battle and pressing it so severely that 4 p.m., Major General Howard deemed it prudent to withdraw these 2 corps to Cemetery Ridge on the south side of town, which operation was successfully accomplished. Not, however, without considerable loss in prisoners arising from the confusion incident to portion of both corps passing through the town and men getting confused in the streets. About the time of the withdrawal, Major General Hancock, whom I dispatched to represent me on the field, on hearing of the death of General Reynolds, in conjunction with Major General Howard, General Hancock proceeded to post troops on Cemetery Ridge and to repel an attack that the enemy made on our right flank. This attack was not, however, very vigorous, and the enemy, seeing the strength of the position occupied, seemed to be satisfied with the success he had accomplished, desisting from any further attack this day. About 7 p.m., being satisfied, the reports received from the field that it was the intention of the enemy to support with his whole army the attack already made, and the reports from Major General Hancock and Howard on the character of the position being favorable. I determined to give battle at this point, and early in the evening of the 1st issued orders to all the corps to concentrate at Gettysburg, directing all trains to be sent to the rear at Westminster. At 10 p.m. on the 1st, I broke up my headquarters, which until then had been at Taneytown, and proceeded to the field, arriving there at 1 a.m. on the 2nd. So soon as it was light, I proceeded to inspect the position occupied and to make arrangements for posting the several corps as they should reach the ground. By 7 a.m., the 2nd and 5th Corps, with the rest of the 3rd, had reached the ground and were posted as follows. The 11th Corps retained its position on the Cemetery Ridge, just opposite the town. The 1st Corps was positioned on the right of the 11th on the elevated knoll, connecting with a ridge extending to the southeast on which the 12th Corps was placed. The right of the 12th Corps resting on a small stream at a point where it crossed the Baltimore Pike, and which formed, on the right flank of the 12th, something of an obstacle. The Cemetery Ridge extended in a westerly and southerly direction, gradually diminishing in elevation until it came to a very prominent ridge called Round Top, running east and west. The 2nd and 3rd were directed to occupy continuation of the Cemetery Ridge on the left of the 11th Corps. The 5th Corps, pending the arrival of the 6th Corps, was held in reserve. While these dispositions were being made, the enemy was massing his troops on an exterior ridge, distant from the line occupied by us, from 1 mile to 1.5 miles. During the heavy assault upon our extreme left, portions of the 12th Corps were sent as reinforcements. During their absence, the line on the extreme right was held by a very much reduced force. This was taken advantage of by the enemy, who during the absence of Geary's division of the 12th Corps advanced and occupied a part of his line. With this exception, the quiet of the line remained undisturbed till 1 p.m. on the 3rd, when the enemy opened from over 125 cannons, playing upon our center and left. The cannonade continued for over 2 hours, when our guns, in obedience to my orders, failing to make any reply, the enemy ceased fire, and soon his masses of infantry became visible, forming for an assault on our left and left center. The assault was made with great firmness, directly principally against the point occupied by the Second Corps, and was repelled with equal firmness by the troops of that corps. This terminated the battle, the enemy retiring to his lines, leaving the field strewn with his dead and wounded, and numerous prisoners in our hands. On the morning of the 4th, reconnaissance developed that the enemy had drawn back his left flank, but maintained his position in front of our left, apparently assuming a new line parallel to the mountains. On the morning of the 5th, it was asserted the enemy was in full retreat by the Fairfield and Cashtown roads. July 5th and 6th were employed in succoring the wounded and burying the dead. I determined to follow the enemy a flank movement, and accordingly leaving McIntosh's brigade of cavalry and Neal's brigade of infantry to continue harassing the enemy, put the army in motion for Middletown, Maryland. The results of the campaign may be briefly stated in the defeat of the enemy at Gettysburg, his compulsory evacuation of Pennsylvania and Maryland, and withdrawal from the upper valley of the Shenandoah, and in the capture of 3 guns, 41 standards, and 13,621 prisoners. 24,978 small arms were collected on the battlefield. Our own losses were very severe, amounting, as will be seen by the accompanying return, to 2,834 killed, 13,709 wounded, and 6,643 missing. In all, 23,286. It is impossible in a report of this nature to enumerate all instances of gallantry and good conduct which distinguish such a hard-fought field as Gettysburg. I will only add my tribute to the heroic bravery of the whole army, officers and men, which under the blessing of divine providence enabled a crowning victory to be obtained, which I feel confident the country will never cease to bear in grateful remembrance. Very respectfully, your obedient servant, Major G. Meade, Major General Commanding, Army of the Potomac. Brigadier General Lorenzo Thomas, Adjutant General, U.S. Army, Washington, D.C. All right, friends, so that is George Meade's report. At the end of this week, I'm going to have out Robert E. Lee's. Now, you're going to see a big difference between these two. Meade's was very short and to the point. Lee's is going to be much longer. I may try out doing a southern accent for that, so my southern viewers, please don't be offended. I'm trying, as you know, I really didn't do a Pennsylvania accent there, though. But thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope you enjoyed, something new. I like to, I often in the comments say how I don't like using first-person points of view strictly because they can be skewed. But this is an interesting thing to look into, especially considering you need to see the perspective of the mindset of someone like George Meade. Because, George Meade was only just made, about 4 days before the battle, was just made the commander of the Army of the Potomac. So I think this is an interesting way to dive into the psyche of these guys. Lee's is going to be much longer, which shows as he's, at this point of the war, had probably written significantly more of these. But thank you so much for joining me today, friends. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, and comment if you enjoyed. And if you didn't enjoy, like, share, and comment too. I don't care. At this point, I welcome the roasting, especially by how bad my hair looked when I took this hat off. If you're new to the channel, or if you're returning and not yet subscribed, please subscribe. We try to have new content out every week. Podcast is getting back up. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the next one.